I should begin by introducing myself. I am a Tanzanian by birth. I have been a member of the ruling party CCM since its inception in 1977. And before that, I was a member of the Tanganyika African National Union and a member of its youth league from the time I was in secondary school in 1966. I had my primary education and secondary education in Tosamaganga in Iringa district, and after completing high school, I went to the University of Dar es Salaam, where I studied for the Bachelor of Arts in Education. I graduated with first-class honors in 1970 and proceeded to take graduate studies as part of the staff development for the University of Dar es Salaam for the Department of Political Science. I went to study at the University of Toronto in Ottawa, Canada, where I graduated in a master's degree in political science in 1971 and proceeded to study for the doctoral degree with a specialization in international affairs and graduated in 1975 with a doctorate degree in international relations. I came back to Tanzania and joined the University of Dar es Salaam. I was among the very first graduates in international relations to teach at the University of Dar es Salaam. After 2 years, I was appointed by the late President Nyerere to go and work in his office in the National Security and Intelligence Services and establish a research department and a training from 1977 onwards. In 1983, after a very interesting and challenging assignment in the country at a time of great political and economic challenges, and also at a time when the liberation movement and the struggle in Southern Africa was reaching its apex, I had a great opportunity to understand the principles that govern the unity and peace in my country, which are the foundations that form the key pillars of this nation. Unity is something that was behind the success of the independence movement in this country. And the unity that was preached, practiced, and advocated by the late President Nyerere to galvanize the various groups, regional, religious, ethnic, and even racial differences in this country, as well as generational differences, to form one nation. And that has been one of the greatest gifts and pillars of this nation of Tanzania. This unity was extended and expressed in the Union of Tanganyika and Zanzibar in 1964. The unity that has prevailed in Tanzania and the union between the two countries that has now existed for over 50 years has given rise to a unique situation of peace that has qualified Tanzania to be described as the island of peace in Africa and in many developing countries. It is one of the pride and of the great heritage that President Nyerere and another founding father, President Karume, bequeathed to this nation. After 50 years, it is appropriate that we should examine the foundation stones and the entire foundation that has brought unity and peace to this nation. It is no exaggeration to say that the principles upon which the unity and the peace of this country are being challenged in this country. We are beginning to hear and even to see trends that are rearing their ugly head around the divisive forces of ethnicity, religion, religious differences, racial overtones, and even generational differences between the youth and the elders. These are not healthy signs. It is important that the future leadership of this country in the fifth phase should address these issues in order to strengthen the foundation and the pillars of unity and peace in this country. The other important pillar that was bequeathed to Tanzania by the founding fathers is the national ethos or ethics that have characterized the Tanzanian nation and have been the pride of this nation. This ethics or ethos or the philosophy around these principles touch on many aspects. It touches on patriotism. It touches on accountability. It touches on transparency, on leadership, on good governance. And these have characterized not only the character of the nation, but also the main characteristics of the government or government structure and governance systems in this country. It is no secret, and we must admit that it is being said publicly in the media that the national ethics are being eroded in this country. It may be an issue of a new generation. 50 years on after independence, there is a great number of young people who did not get the benefit of growing up in Tanzania under the leadership of our founding fathers. With the due respect and great gratitude to the leadership that we have witnessed in this country from the first phase of government of President Nyerere and President Karume, in the second phase of President Mwinyi, the third phase of President Mkapa, and the current fourth phase of President Kikwete, they have done their best to maintain the unity of this country, to maintain the peace that has characterized this nation, and to uphold the national ethics that have been the foundation stone of governance as well as patriotism in this country. But like a building that has lasted for over 50 years, it is time to reinforce the foundation, especially the cornerstones upon which the twin pillars of unity and peace and the national ethics have been laid upon. It is time to strengthen these foundations. But at the same time, these twin pillars that we have witnessed are being challenged. For one reason or another, are also affecting the direction of the nation in all the major areas of the economy and the political system. In the area of national ethics, I am particularly concerned, and I think my concern is shared by many people in this country, that one of the elements that are undermining the good ethics and ethos of this country is corruption and dishonesty. Lack of transparency in governance and lack of accountability. It is proceeding at an alarming rate, and it is time that if we are to preserve the basic characteristics of this nation, this evil of corruption and the lack of accountability must be addressed with great urgency. I would like to explain the extent to which this national concern is affecting the direction of our politics, our economy, our social systems, and the whole area of the rule of law in this country. This will be the issues of my concern if I get to the position to make sure that the founding principles of this nation remain firm and stable and govern properly the direction of this nation. In politics, if we allow corruption and dishonesty to prevail, if we allow only those people with financial abilities to hold positions of leadership by exercising their financial leverage, we shall reach a situation where the leadership of this country is in the hands of a few, and those who have it, and the majority of the people will be excluded or will be finding extremely difficult to vie and hold political positions according to the constitutional rights, because they do not have the financial wherewithal to vie for those positions. Corruption with impunity does affect the direction of politics in the country. Another area of concern is the direction of the economy. Already in this country, there are complaints that despite the statistical growth of the economy of this country, the reality is that there are the haves and there are the have-nots. Growth of 7% plus has not translated adequately into the well-being of the people, the majority of the people economically. And this can partly be attributed to the fact that the ability of the government to provide basic services and the ability of the government to create favorable conditions for the ordinary people to increase their incomes and to access basic services that the government has to provide is being undermined or undercut by the pilferage of resources, and resources that are in the few hands or are creating a situation of unaccountability, of inefficiency, and of loss of resources. One has to look at the annual reports of the Auditor General and see the extent to which this country is losing so much, and those responsible are not adequately dealt with and are actually getting away with. I am very grateful to the members of the press who have sometimes statistically shown how the nation is losing. I remember in the last report, it was revealed that the money that was lost could have built 700 kilometers of tarmac road. It could have built several schools, clinics, and hospitals. And this has been an annual problem that we are facing. It is corruption and sometimes outright theft of public funds and public property. If we allow this to continue, the party's plan, which will be the election manifesto, cannot be fully realized. The manifesto has not yet been issued, but it touches, among other things, the direction of the economy. But worse still, it is the national vision of 2025. if we keep on losing money because of corruption, dishonesty, and outright theft, again, my respect and gratitude to the media, which has sometimes publicly revealed some of the money which is lost, gone outside this country. And even foreign governments can testify and have revealed colossal sums of money that leave not only Tanzania, but many developing countries unaccounted for and are in foreign accounts. How can the party manifesto be achieved? How can Vision 2025 be accomplished in the face of all this? Another area in the economy which is adversely affected by this gross situation of incompetence and corruption is the private sector. What I've just said applies to the public sector. But the private sector, which everybody now says is the engine of growth in Tanzania, has not received the attention it deserves in order to lead this country successfully and in productive partnership between the private sector and the public sector. In many cases, there are many well-wishers. There are many prospective investors who want to come to Tanzania, a country which is endowed with many resources, and more natural resources are being discovered like gas and oil, not to mention the many minerals and the rich agricultural land in this country. Our president has been very instrumental in assuring foreign investors to come to this country. But upon arrival in this country, many are disillusioned. A project that should take maybe 6 months to take off takes 18 months, 2 years, and sometimes 3 years. Many prospective investors have had to leave and go to other African countries or even neighboring countries like Mozambique and Ethiopia because they couldn't get their project off the ground, either because people are not responding positively or because they are constrained by factors that can at best be explained as smirking of corruption. Of course, there have been some very good examples, and everybody admits that those negative elements in this country are in the minority, and they should be dealt with. But history shows that many times it is the minority who are in the minority that can cause change, positive change, or can precipitate a crisis in a country. Those few elements must be nipped in the bud. In order to allow the private sector to thrive, it is important to nourish it in the same way as farmers or dairy keepers take care of their cows to get maximum milk production. And the private sector not only needs the right kind of environment, but also it needs good governance, transparency, and accountability by those who are involved in it. We want the private sector to be not only a partner of the public sector, but to engage Tanzanians to the fullest extent as equal partners and beneficiaries, and also to participate fully in all those activities that will increase national participation and national ownership by Tanzanians. And this can be consummated and realized if not only the governance situation is conducive and attractive, but also those loopholes that cause disillusionment and disappointment to prospective investors are addressed. Similarly, in the social sector and in areas governing rule of law, people should have access to human rights. People should have access to courts without having to be extorted with payments. People should have access to basic rights like education and social services. But if the ability of the government is undermined by losses that go unexplained, then that ability and the satisfaction of people's needs, and indeed their loyalty and confidence on their government, will be shaken. If we can address these issues, not only do we allow the government to preserve the resources, but to increase the appreciation and loyalty of the people to their government. The ruling party is called Chama cha Mapinduzi. It means the party of the revolution or transformation. It has also had the reputable name of a liberation party, to liberate the Tanzanians from the bondage of poverty, ignorance, and ill health. It is therefore important that while we articulate and propagate and advance these policies under the party manifesto and Vision 2025, which is just 10 years from now, there are 2 development plans remaining to realize that vision, but the issue of the right use and preservation of our resources must be addressed. Similarly, Tanzania has many friends. President Nyerere made friends, and those friends have been inherited by other friends. President Kikwete has said he is living in October with a Tanzania without enemies, and more important, with friends from every corner of the globe. Indeed, we have friends. And our friends have been generous to this country. But let's not mince words. If our friends who are ready to give and support Tanzania's development come across a system perpetrated by a few that does not use well the resources that are being given to us, we shouldn't be surprised that they will withhold those resources. We shouldn't be surprised that there'll be more conditionalities for the use of those resources. But I am sure if Tanzania lives up to an efficient, transparent system, there'll be even more resources without having to go through the rigor and sometimes the demeaning process of begging for resources. Developing countries have certain entitlements in the international system. There are those that we can achieve by working with the other countries who are like-minded and at the same stage of development like ourselves. The international system has excellent fora where we can articulate our needs, whether it is in trade or in the environment, and top among these fora is the United Nations. The United Nations has defined not only the principles and the rules of international interaction and cooperation, but also has defined the priorities like what we witnessed, and we are just finishing the Millennium Development Goals, which are to be followed by the Sustainable Goals. Tanzania must work and utilize the Forum of the United Nations, the Forum of Developing Countries, the Group of 77, the Forum of the African Union, and close to home, Regional Integration Forum. This is where our future belongs. But in addition to these multilateral efforts, which Tanzania is known for being an active member, we have adopted a policy that is called economic diplomacy. But this cannot be fully implemented if we do not also have strategies of working through the fora that have been presented to us. For Tanzania, the United Nations should have a particular place in our hearts. It was through the United Nations that our independence was facilitated and indeed fast-tracked through the Trusteeship Council. And the United Nations offers many other opportunities for cooperation, not only among developing countries, but for articulating issues that are of global concern and of global importance to international peace and security, like terrorism and the like. But still, Tanzania has to interact bilaterally with countries. These bilateral countries have shown tremendous goodwill to this country, only occasionally to be disappointed by the assistance they extend to us, some of which cannot be fully explained. Again, we go back to the ethics and ethos of this country. If we can establish the procedures that are satisfactory, I'm sure many countries will be ready to help Tanzania. And it is good for them too, because they'll tell their citizens that the support and assistance we extend to Tanzania has produced these good results. It is by putting our house in order that we can attract more resources and receive more support from the international community, from the multilateral system, and from the bilateral system. While I'm talking about this, I want to raise a particular concern about the youth in this country. Not only the challenge of the youth in this country, but it is a global challenge to all developing countries. 75% of the Tanzanian population are young people under the age of 35. In the coming 5 years or 10 years, before we realize Vision 2025, the number may have grown to 80% plus. How do we address this issue? I am advocating that the youth of Tanzania must be streamlined as a concern nationally, and with the same determination, but to be linked up with the determination and engagement of the international community. we must use the same kind of strategies and the same kind of political will, creativity and imagination that is cross-cutting in politics, economics, and social approaches, exactly in the same way as we used these strategies to advance the rights and empowerment of the women. The agenda is not yet complete with the women. We have made tremendous strides in this country, and we are definitely moving ahead, and we have a long way to go. But that kind of determination, which begins with the political commitment, and every sector in this country, whether it is public or private, must be challenged to outline how we are going to address the issue of the youth employment and empowerment. The private sector and the public sector have a great role to play. But we must empower our youth to be able to employ themselves. In the same way as we empowered women to empower themselves, must be our approach to the issue of the youth. I was gratified, and I want to express my profound gratitude to President Kikwete during his statement to the last General Assembly at the United Nations, where he called upon the United Nations, the international system, to give special focus and attention to the youth. I hope this issue will be picked up by not only developing countries and the United Nations, as it has always been, as the defining forum for these issues, will give the attention it deserves. Because a restless youth in Africa will not only be a destabilizing factor to our countries, but also international.